Hi, Dee. Welcome to the Conquering Everest podcast. How are you?
I'm fine, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So Dee, well, let's go ahead and start, if you don't mind. We'll just give a small introduction to who you are and to our audience. So, if you don't mind, let's tell us a little bit about Dee Wolk.
Oh,
Loaded question.
I always say that the biggest cause of stress is life.
Mm,
And the key is how we handle it. That's the key. And I learned that my first husband, I met him in the Catskill Mountains, and he was from New York, and I was from Cleveland, Ohio, Shaker Heights. And we fell in love. We had the same values. We were on the same page. And he wanted me to move to New York. He had a valet dry cleaning operation with his uncle in Manhattan. Well, I didn't know anyone in New York. And I couldn't move to New York. So he moved to Cleveland and he bought a big old dry cleaning plant in not a very nice neighborhood.
mm.
And we got married. And it was a fairy tale. And I thought I would live happily ever after, but I didn't. I got a call one day that my husband had gone to the dry cleaning plant on a Sunday to interview someone. And they gave me a call that he had a heart attack
Mm.
and he was in his 40s.
Wow.
Well, I got in my car and I drove over. And as I was driving up to the dry cleaning plant, I saw him being carried out by an ambulance in a body bag. And
Thanks.
it's so many, many, many years ago, but I still remember it. I couldn't believe it. Well,
Right. And I would to see that to pull up knowing that something's wrong, and then to see them coming out with the body bag. That, yeah, I can only imagine that kind
I
of
couldn't even
time
imagine.
stood still for a moment. Yeah.
Well, I didn't, Joe didn't have any life insurance. And I learned that the business was struggling. And this was my choice, Brian: welfare or dry cleaning lady. My mother, who was then widowed, looked at me and she says, "Dry cleaning lady? You never saw anything dry clean in your life. And this is a bad neighborhood. You can't do that." Well, I didn't want to go on welfare. So I decided I was going to be a dry cleaning lady. And when you want something enough and you have a passion for what you want, you're going to do it. I
Hmm.
learned that because up until then, who was I? I was married to my dream husband, had a fairy tale life, had a part time job in an art gallery. I mean, where am I?
Right.
And I learned so much because what we have inside ourselves is ourselves. And we have the power to change things. The tragedy of life is that people don't use that power. Well, 3 weeks after Joe died, after closing, 2 men came in with a double-barreled shotgun and robbed me.
Mm.
Well, I thought my mother was going to have a heart attack. You have to sell that business. You can't stay there. You'll get killed. And I said, Mom, if I don't go back tomorrow, I never will go back. I remember when I was about 4 years old, my father got me a little pony. We called it Macaroni. And he put me on Macaroni and I fell off. And the little pony went over my knee. And my knee split open and gushed blood. And I'm 4 years old and I'm screaming. I don't want any part of this little horse. And I remember my father picking me up. He used to call me Babe. He said, Babe, we're going to fix your knee and you're going to be fine. But you got to get back on Macaroni right now or you never will again. And I never, Brian, I never forgot that.
Yeah.
I just never forgot that. So I did go back the very next day. I hired a security guard to come in at 4 o'clock to walk me to my car at 7. I had a carpenter board up the back windows, change all the locks, and I started again as a dry cleaning lady. Now, I love to research. And in my researches in all the years before, I learned that affirmations are powerful. I'd never done them, but I read about them. So I remember one day I came into this plant and they said, Dee, the basement is flooded. The pilot light went off and there's rats floating around. And I looked and nobody would go down. Nobody. Well, I went out and bought fishing boots. And I sat by the sewing machine. And I wrote down, I can do this. I can go down the basement. I will go down the basement. I can do this. I will turn the pilot light on. I'm not afraid. The rats are dead. They can't do anything to me. And I did it. Now, if I would have said, oh, I can't do this? No way can I go down there. I'm scared to death. What would have happened? So, what's the difference between perception and reality? Your perception becomes your reality.
Mm. Yeah.
And if you change your perception, you change your reality. So you can do anything you really want to achieve. And I learned that. I looked all over. I didn't find a lease. I didn't have a lease. So I called up the landlord. But before I called him, I rehearsed it. I said on my rehearsal exactly what I was going to say. His name was Angelo Tucci. I said, Angelo, this is Dee Heiferling. Oh, Dee, how are you doing? I'm doing okay, but I don't have a lease with you. Oh, you don't need a lease. Joe and I just shook hands. Joe isn't here anymore, Angelo. If you sell this building, I may not have a plant.
Mhm.
I need a lease. Now, if I hadn't rehearsed that and role played it, I couldn't have done it. So all these things, nobody can do these things for you. So what is it all come from? It comes from a belief in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
A belief in yourself. Everything starts from the inside out. And this is so important for parents to give children. Instead of all those fancy toys and all those electrical gizmos, help them believe in themselves. This is the greatest gift you can give a child.
Yeah, because your life, I mean, just in taking over the dry cleaning business, I mean, there's like 3 or 4 instances that one making any different decision for any of those 4, who knows where you may have, we may not be having this conversation today. You may have went down a completely different path. And I totally agree with our the mind over matter and the belief system, because I've experienced it firsthand myself. And it's just it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book, and you don't know where you're going to end up, but you gotta take that leap of faith and trust yourself and believe in yourself. So yeah, you could have, who knows where you would have, and where do you think you would have ended up had you not even considered taking over the business?
Right. I That's so true, Brian. Um, I don't know what would have happened to me, but all these things that I had to endure and accomplish changed me. Changed me. Um, Joe had a contract with one of the banks here in Cleveland, and he did all their draperies of all their branches. And there was about 20 branches, and it was a big order for us. Well, what was I going to do? The vice president of the bank was about Joe's age, and they had a relationship, and Joe got the contract every year automatically. Well, I had to do some role playing. One of the things that Joe did once a year, around New Year's, before New Year's, he would take a case of liquor over to Jerry's house,
Mm.
the vice president, and they'd have a drink together. And Joe always got the drapery jobs. So I decided to buy a case of liquor, but I'm not a drinker. So I don't know what to do. So I asked one of my friend's husbands to help me. And I got this case of liquor and put it in the trunk of in the car. And I didn't want to call him ahead, and I didn't want to tell him that Joe had dropped dead. I didn't want to do that. They were the same age. I
Mm.
just didn't want to. So I asked my son, who was young, to come with me. And I picked a real bad, stormy night, hoping that because it was so stormy, they would be home. And when I drove up, I saw lights on. And I rang the bell. And he opened the door. And of course, he didn't know who I was. And I introduced myself. I said, I'm Dee Heiferling, Joe Heiferling's wife. And of course, he was confused. Can I come in? And this is my son, Mark. And he says, oh, yes, come on in. And we sat down and I told him what happened. Well, it blew his mind. It really did. He was very upset. And I said, Jerry, Mark is going to get a case of liquor out of the trunk of the car. Oh, no, no, no. My wife is making coffee. No, don't do that. And I said, I want to do that for Joe. Let's have a drink for Joe. And I had practiced this over and over, believe me. And I said, you know, Jerry, I know the dry cleaning business like the back of my hand. Ha ha ha. I can do these drapes where you will love them and be satisfied. You will love the work that I will do for you. And I don't know the price yet because some of the things I might have to put out. But I promise you I will be fair. And he looked at me and I thought it was forever. And he said, you got it. And when I went back to the plant and I got all these draperies, I said a prayer over draperies. I did. So I got married for the second time. And it wasn't love. He was a nice man, a lot older than I. His wife had died 5 years previous of cancer. And he had 2 sons and a daughter, a brother, a sister-in-law, nieces and nephews. He said, Dee, you don't have a family, really. I will bring you a family. I will see that you are happy. So I thought to myself, okay, maybe this would be good for me. Well, he was a nervous wreck, me being a dry cleaning lady. And he said, when you come home late, I think something happened. You've got to sell it. Well, you know, this was my passion.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to sell it. And I figured, oh, okay, I'll put an ad in the paper. Nobody's going to buy this dump. It'll take years. Do you know I sold it in 2 weeks?
Oh, wow.
And I was depressed. I literally was depressed.
And that depression came from the fact that you had given so much of your blood, sweat, and tears to take this and build it up after your husband passed. So it was probably, did it feel like kind of a piece of you was missing then at that
Exactly.
point? Yeah.
Exactly, Brian. You named it. Well, I was an emotional eater. I ate because I was tired, bored, anxious, frustrated, lonely, happy. Everybody else was eating. It was a holiday, you name it. I went on every diet that came out. I would go on it. Lose weight on the diet, but never, ever kept it off. Finally, I said to myself, something's wrong with me. I'm a failure.
Mm.
I'm going to the doctor. So I went to my doctor and I shared my feelings. And he looked at me and I will never forget it, Brian. He said, Dee, you're a yo-yo dieter. Do you know what yo-yo dieter can do to your body? You can get diabetes. You can harm your kidneys, your heart, etc. Diets are only a patch, not a fix. Well, that blew my mind because all these years I kept saying, I want to be thinner. I want to be thinner. What good is being thinner if you're not healthy?
Right.
So I decided, because I had heard for years, that the body is smarter than you are. So I decided to research the brain and the body, and how they work together with your eating, how you can lose weight without any deprivation, shots, pills, etc., and keep it off.
Mm-hmm.
I lost over 49 pounds. It just melted away. And it was so simple. And everybody wanted to know what diet I went on, and they were ready to write it down. I didn't diet. Oh, come on, Dee, don't be like that. Tell us what diet you went on. I didn't diet. How did you lose this weight? I learned how the body is designed to eat. Well, do you know, Brian, they thought I was an alien from Mars. They, they really, this was in the 1983.
Yeah.
Well, when they saw I wasn't gaining anything back, and then I ate what I wanted to eat, but I didn't eat the same way, they begged me to teach them. Do you know, I've taught 32,000 people.
Wow.
I help them fly again. And as they learn how to melt away their excess weight, wellness becomes their co pilot, which is so important because without that, you don't have anything.
Yeah. Did you find as you discovered this, the way to lose weight and keep it off, did you find that some of the lessons that you had learned when taking over the dry cleaning business, like the affirmations, the belief, the mind over the matter, did that start to kind of make sense
All of
in
it.
this new? Yeah.
Because the dry cleaning experience, the loss of the man that I loved so much, changed me so to realize that you have to become your own best friend.
Mm-hmm.
You have to love yourself enough to want to take care of yourself. This is so important. This is the key to everything.
Yeah.
And when I learned that I could overcome fears and sell a business, I'll never forget the first week I was a dry cleaning lady. And I went to the supermarket with some money that I had made. I was buying my own groceries. I couldn't believe it. I was on a high. It changed me.
Yeah.
It proved to me that you can do whatever you want to do if you want it enough and you have the passion.
What was so you said this was 1983 when you took over the dry cleaning business? It was in the 80s?
Uh, Joe died in 1979.
Okay, so late 70s, early
Yeah.
80s. What was the what was the perception of, the differences between male and female then? Today, day and age, there's a lot more equality than there was. I was just getting life started in the 80s. So what was it unusual for a woman to be a business owner? And like you said, you were buying your own groceries. So I would imagine that the thinking or the belief was that the man earns and the woman takes care of the household and does the shopping. Was that how it was in the 80s when you took over and started to become this successful businesswoman?
I think your view is correct. Um, there are a lot more women today running businesses.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they have an easy time.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're in the corporate world, I'm not saying they have an easy time. But I think I made sure that everything looked well when it was wrapped up. and given to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't find, I think that they liked Joe so much and they were so happy that I was continuing it. So I was lucky in that effect.
Okay.
I think that helped a lot. They were glad that it was still there and not closed up.
Right.
But I'll never forget how the dry cleaning had such an effect on me as this entrepreneur with this no diet weight solution. It
Right.
was the first time that I had to give a speech for 400 Mary Kay women at a hotel. And I was nervous.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I wrote, just like I did in the dry cleaning at the sewing machine, I will be fine. I can do this. I believe in this. I want to help people fly again. And when I go out on that stage, I'm going to picture everyone in that audience on the potty, because that equalized everything. They're just like
Yeah.
me. I'm just like them. We're not different.
Right.
So everything that I did and learned and researched to get strong and positive in the dry cleaning helped me, definitely.
And so you had discovered this way of losing weight and being able to keep the weight off without any kind of gimmicky diets. It sounds like you were starting to get out and network and speak to larger audiences. What did the business what has it turned into? And are you're still doing it today, correct? You're still out
Well,
there.
I I believed in what I learned so much that my passion lit the fire in
Mm,
everybody. Um, I'll never forget. Um, I taught my program for 7.5 years at the Cleveland Clinic, which is the biggest uh, hospital in the nation.
mm,
I taught in corporations. And how did I teach in corporations? Um, I would have a lunch and learn.
mm.
And I'll never forget, I was at Lubasol and they had 55 people listening to me. And I signed up 42
Wow.
because I believe in it.
Right.
I was that dieter. I was that, the shakes, the special food, the, the shots, the pills, all that.
Mm,
I could have, God knows what, done to myself.
right.
So my mission became to really help people, because it's not only, sure, we want to look good,
Hmm.
but health is more important than anything.
Right. Yeah.
There's somebody sent me something that I've had for years that I would share with some people. I found that the male mentality is a little harder to do brain surgery without the scalpel.
Hmm.
And this article was about Grabwell Gourmet. And Grabwell Gourmet was overweight, a smoker, a drinker, etc., etc. And his doctors told him to do this, to do that, not to do this, not to do that. And he said, oh, you know what? I'm going to live my life as usual. Nothing's going to happen to me. Well, one day at his office at 58, he dropped dead at his desk.
Mm.
And his wife had an autopsy. And she found out that all the terrible things that were going on in his body. But she said, you know, I think Grabwell would have been happy to know that he died of natural causes. And they weren't natural causes. But this is what people do. They don't want to face reality. It's difficult. They don't want to change. Nobody likes to be changed but a baby when it's wet.
Yeah. We cut out just a little bit there, but that's okay. I think most of what you were saying was captured. But you had mentioned that he had passed. This gentleman had passed away. His wife had the autopsy done, and just then it came to light what all the smoking and the drinking was. That's kind of where it cut out. But then you came back, and I think it filled in the gap where you were saying that nobody wants to be wet except for a baby. So would you say that a lot of it is maybe stubbornness, or is it a lack of confidence for people when it comes to taking care of themselves?
That's a good question. I think it's a lack of confidence to a certain extent. A lot of it is how we're brought up.
Mm.
I don't think parents do this deliberately. Of course not. They love their children, but let's take it for eating.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was a fabulous cook, marvelous cook. And she'd say, we're having dinner now. And I'd look at her and say, I'm not hungry. This is when we're eating.
Mm.
Hunger wasn't even mentioned in the house.
Yeah.
So I'd eat, and I wasn't hungry, and I'd leave food on my plate, and my mother would say, why aren't you finishing your food? Do you know that it's a sin to leave food on your plate? There are starving people in the world. If you don't finish your food, you can't go out and play. You can't get dessert. So it's what we learn.
Yeah. And some of that, it sounds like with that mentality. And I remember that as a kid being told that you're going to sit here and finish everything.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to get this. So it's almost as if probably for a lot of folks, at least in my generation and before, food was used as a reward system. So, it's like our body and our mind hold on to that. And I am an emotional eater as well. So, when I'm sad, I will eat because, I guess I'm guessing that in my mind, I'm still holding on to the belief that, well, food is a treat, it is a reward, it's going to make you feel better, when it's really just trying to mask the pain of the moment for however long that is.
Food, Brian, is only fuel.
Yeah.
The body only looks at food as fuel. And I teach people when to eat, to listen to their body. Is their body telling them that they need fuel?
Yeah.
Just like the gauge in your car. And when you're emotionally hungry, you have to create. I have an emotional hunger scale.
Okay.
And you have to have, I get people to make a list of things that make them feel good.
Mm.
because the food isn't going to do anything. It's just
Right.
temporary. It's just temporary.
Yeah.
But listening to music, if you enjoy music, calling up a friend you haven't talked to in a long time, um, taking a walk, um, reading that book that you put down that you want to read. There's so many things. I call them life enhancers. A life enhancer a day keeps the fat away.
That's a good way to put it, and a lot better for you, I would imagine, mentally than turning to food,
But you
because
see, you have to care enough about yourself
yeah,
to want to take care of yourself.
want that change, to have a
Nobody can do
reason to
that
change.
for you. A doctor can tell you something doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's you that's important.
Yeah. Here today, what are you still really active out there teaching this your principles on this? Do you have a website, any books, or anything? How
I
can
have a
people?
website.
Okay.
Um, I'm an author of a cookbook. I I had a client. I teach privately. I teaching classes. I taught so many classes. Lubasol, Eaton, Nestle, Parker Hannifin, you name it. They don't have classes anymore. That's
Yeah.
gone. That's totally gone. So I teach privately. I teach, I put my program online and they can get in touch with me anytime while they're taking it. Um, Everything's changed.
Yeah.
So my passion is still there. My mission is still there. I just had a woman lose 89 pounds
Wow.
um, on the phone. I did her whole thing on the phone, 9 weeks. Um, I didn't make it up.
Yeah.
It's the way we're designed.
Right.
That's all I did is put it together, made a roadmap.
Yeah.
And anybody that is listening to this podcast, I want to offer a free 15-minute call. I'd be glad to give them and talk with them. And they can click in, go to deewoke.com and click on free 15-minute call at the top of the page. And they can go to my website, deewoke@thinneryou.com. We're not designed to be deprived. We have a hypothalamus in the back of our brain. Say that your diet, Brian, says salad, unlimited amount,
Right.
with diet dressing, which is really yuck.
Yeah.
And you eat this big salad and you finish and you say, oh my God, I'm so full, but I still want something.
Right.
You have to be satisfied with what you are eating.
Mm. Yeah.
Or you cheat here or cheat there. And oh, tomorrow I'll go back on it.
Right. I've eaten enough salads in my life that if I never eat another salad, I'll be fine with it. I'm one of those that have done that where I'm trying to, okay, the salad's going to fill me up, but I end up just calling, now my name for lettuce is just crunchy water because it doesn't satisfy that need for flavor or
Well,
whatever.
first of all, it's all mental.
Yeah.
Believe me, it's mind over fatter.
I like
Okay?
that. Mind over
Now,
fatter.
Everybody that takes my program gets a free membership to the Room Full of Gold. Say that you're obsessed with gold bars, the money. All you think of morning, noon, and night is getting these gold bars. And I come along, I say, hey, Brian, I've got a room full of gold bars. You can come into my room when you want to, and you can take all you want, but you only have 3 minutes. And then you have to get out and you can never come back. What would you do in those 3 minutes?
I don't know. I guess the initial thought is to take whatever you could take, right?
Right, you're obsessed. I mean, I'd take a U-Haul.
Yeah.
Okay, but what if I said, Brian, you're obsessed with gold bars. I have a room full of gold bars. You can come into my room whenever you need some.
Okay.
You can come in the morning, mid-morning, afternoon, evening. You can come in and out and in and out whenever you need some. So it takes away that feeling, well, I better eat it now because I can't eat it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You have it there. If you're physically body hungry, you can have it. Of course, as you come along on the program, you realize there are some foods that are certainly better for you than others. That doesn't
Right.
mean you should never have the others, because that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Just eat when you're physically body hungry and you burn what you eat. And you know, I have an 11th commandment. Thou shalt not eat unless physically body hungry. And I've tried to get in touch with the Pope, but he hasn't returned my call.
Dee, it's been great having you on the show. I really enjoy your story. I think it's one that you had gone through so much in such a short period of time, and I'm glad that you found it within yourself to believe in yourself and to do the things that you needed to do to live that life you wanted to live. I think I 100% agree. The mind is where it all starts, and and ultimately those decisions you made earlier on in your life with the dry cleaning business, I mean, they all sound like it led to the success in helping people, as you say, fly again and to lose that weight. So there's a lot of great lessons in there to unpack, and yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. I love people that take a mindset approach, because that's really what I thrive on as well. So we have the website. Are you on social media? Can people find you out on Twitter,
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn? Okay. All right. And we'll make sure we have all the
Facebook
links.
also.
Facebook. Okay. And we'll have all those links available in the description, so folks can copy and paste those into their browsers and go out and check out your website and check out your social media. And I hope for anybody that's out there struggling with the yo-yo diet, I think you should sign up for that. Schedule that 15-minute call and see how Dee can
We'd love
help
to
change
talk
your
to
life. Yeah. Well,
And it
thank
was
you.
so nice meeting you, and I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, and likewise, it was a pleasure meeting you, and I love having your story on this show, and I think it will serve as inspiration for many. So
Thank you.
hang tight, Dee. I'm going to talk to you just for a moment. I'm going to end our recording though.